Good afternoon and welcome to our sixth installment of Business Insights. Today I am joining you from the Reader CIS Lab. Today's presentation is from Mr. Russell Reader, whose gift made this lab possible. Russ has managed high-growth, multi-billion-dollar global organizations that transform industries by consistently developing and leading diverse teams that revitalize organizations and deliver growth while increasing employee and customer satisfaction. His high-tech background ranges from startup ventures to Fortune 500 giants like Oracle and his first programming job at Mobil Oil. Leveraging his 20-plus years of executive leadership and technical experience combined with his successful sales and cloud industry knowledge, Russ has the unique ability to drive global growth while maintaining a diverse, fun, and healthy work culture. Please don't forget to utilize the Q&A feature to submit your questions for Russ, who will be joining us live at the end of this presentation. And now I present Mr. Russ Reader.
Thank you, Dean Beasing. It's great to be here, and thank you for having me. I have really enjoyed watching the JMU Business Insights. Congratulations on this program. And it's so great to see all the successful alumni giving all their words of wisdom and experiences running businesses through all the different crises that they've been through, and definitely makes me proud to see all those great leaders. Some of them are some really good friends of mine. So happy to be here. I thought that I would go ahead and share with you some of my experiences. I've been through a lot, so I'll try to keep it at a high level, then we'll open it up for Q&A. So again, Russ Reader, I'm the CEO of Infrascale. We are a data protection company that focuses on backup and disaster recovery. We have over 65,000 customers around the world, over 250 petabytes of information stored for those clients. And we have offices all throughout the US, in Ukraine, as well as two in India. So I thought I'd go over my key transitions and then give some learnings along the way during all the multiple crises that I've seen. So I graduated in 94 with a CIS degree, Computer Information Systems, which really gave me, I guess, the right to go out and be a computer programmer, COBOL, mainframe, really the cloud before the cloud, or old school cloud. Enjoyed going to AMS and rolling up my sleeves, but knew that there was something else for me and started to get into sales. First, I went into sales engineering, then into sales, and then called up a good friend of mine who was over at Oracle. You may remember from last week, Michael Donnellan, and Michael got me an interview at Oracle, and the rest is history, as they say. So in 97, I was promoted up to run West Coast application sales for any company over $1 billion in revenue. It's 27 years old, running almost a $250 million division. It was very daunting, but had a lot of fun. In 1999, I was recruited out of Oracle kind of during the dot-com boom to go over and do a startup. It was backed by Sequoia Capital. It was a B2B startup company, and we grew it from 0 to 12 million in revenue within a year. And I'll talk about some of the things that happened there in the next couple slides here. So in 2000, I went and I started my own company down from the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, to Los Angeles. And it was focused on media rights. So digital rights licensing, as well as rights and royalties. Companies today, from Disney Plus to Hulu, Universal, Sony, they all use it as their back-end inventory system for all their digital media streaming. So it's good to see it growing. I sold that in 2005, and then really started working with private equity companies, and I guess kind of being a hired gun, as they call it. So in 2006, I went over to run a video on demand streaming business for mostly focused on hospitality. We literally had Netflix before Netflix. That was some interesting times. Would love to talk about it. That's a whole nother presentation there. And then went in 08 went down to Austin, Texas, moved my family down there, and ran a VC and private equity owned digital media, kind of digital publishing business that provided all the digital books for the Kindle and the iPad and the Google ebook reader and Sony. That was definitely interesting. We'll talk about some of that. And then we sold Libre Digital in 2011. And in 2012, I went back to Los Angeles to run Media Temple, a cloud hosting business, which we sold in 2013 to GoDaddy. And I stayed on the executive management team at GoDaddy to help take it public, which was a lot of fun. And in 2016, I went to worked with a number of private equity companies. KKR just put money into the largest cloud hosting company based in Europe, OVH. And I came in, hired a whole new team, and grew it from 0 to 100 million in 2 years. The plan was due in 4 years. We beat the plan, and then we rolled it back up under the French headquarters. So a lot to discuss there, but not too many crises that we were managing through. And then in 2019, I started running Infrascale. So let's talk about some of the big crises that I've lived through. Just nice to have them in the rearview mirror and also learn from them, with an open mindset. So as I said, I went over in 1999 to go be director of sales at a B2B startup company. And I wasn't on the board. I was just a manager. And we, in kind of late winter of 2000, we got 2 offers. One for 51% of the business for 635 million, the other for about 800 million, mostly cash. And so very interesting. I actually asked the CEO and the board members to take the higher offer of cash and not go with stock. So that was in March 9th, 2000. March 10th was the height of the market. Good time to close a deal, as long as you're getting all cash. And so it was just a free fall for the next month, right after we closed the deal. And I think the biggest learning there, really, at a high level, is don't get greedy. We 1.2 billion valuation, a lot of it stock versus an 800 million, a lot of it cash. Would have been very pragmatic to take the cash off the table. We got some money off the table, but I think people got a little greedy. We had 12 million revenue as well, right? You have to be a realist when you go through these situations as well. So then the next thing that was major crisis for me was 2007, kind of going into it. We were kind of trying to figure out, okay, this subprime mortgage crisis, a lot of people saw it coming. I went over in the beginning, like I mentioned, in 2008, moved down to Austin, Texas to run the business. And so that was kind of September, we made the announcement, moved down to Austin, which is Austin, Texas is a great town. And then we watched the market just continue to slide for 2 years. And so really the big learning during that major crisis was have a plan, right? I remember going to New York the summer that I started in 2008, sitting down with about 15 CEOs and chief digital officers from the top publishing companies in the world, telling them that we were not going to deliver on a lot of things that my predecessors had promised, but we were going to deliver on this entire roadmap. This was the roadmap. This is what we were going to deliver on. We're going to stop focusing on just text trade books. We're going to focus on high-end content, textbooks and magazines, those things that are really hard to show on a digital reader. They, after about a half an hour of them not really yelling, but definitely letting me know how unhappy they were. Within a year, we had delivered on the new products, and they were all very happy. And that's really how you build trust. So during the time period, setting up a plan and then executing on that plan builds trust. And we did have a successful exit coming out of that crisis in 2011. So here I am now, all right, so still running Infrascale. In the end of 2019, I agreed to come on as CEO. The plan was to hire a new management team, move the headquarters from Los Angeles to Reston, and make some acquisitions potentially and grow the business. It's a backup and disaster recovery business, is amazing industry. And so I came on, I came in on in November, made the announcement in 2000 or in 2020 in February. And then we went on to see in March the crash. I think the big learning there, before I get into some others, is one of the things that I definitely live by is like Stephen Covey says, and seek first to understand, then to be understood. So when I came on in November, I took the time to travel around the world. So first I started in the US, met with most of went to all the offices in the US. Then I went to Kyiv in Ukraine in December. I spent 10 days in India in January and went back down to Orlando to meet more of the team members in February. And then in March, the big COVID lockdown happened. And so, I think the major learning there is don't take your time, and I'll get into some of the details here. So I thought I'd just group the experience of things to do and things not to do. So here are some things you should do in a crisis, right? Time matters. That just like President Theodore Roosevelt said, is that the best thing to do in a crisis is make the right decision. The next best thing is to make the wrong decision. And the worst thing is to make no decision. So time matters, and really address the situation and review your plans, right? Look at your current plans, look at your assumptions, and understand what's going to happen to your revenue, what's going to happen to your expenses. Do you need to cut your expenses to make sure you can hit your financial targets? And then as you kind of go into it, you want to have multiple plans. So looking at this crisis, we knew what we would do if things were going to get worse. We knew what we were going to do if things got better. Luckily enough, we were able to cut expenses enough where we didn't have to let anyone go. And we put a halt on hiring new people. Mostly, we were able to hire some, but we had our plans to really understand where we were going. And then, once you have your plan, you need to be candid with your employees. Don't try to cover it up or not tell everyone everything, because they're going to know. They're going to wonder what your plans are, and they're going to know if you're not really giving them the honest truth. And then, in these situations, it really is, you have to innovate. You have to think out of the box. You have to take a step back. I love the different stories I've heard about how businesses have totally changed their business models. Restaurants that went from, in the restaurant dining to pure delivery, and how they went through that to home food, catering. I mean, it's just amazing to watch the innovation, and the ones that didn't are no longer around. But as you can see, the market's coming back, and the ones with the best plans, both on a downturn and on the upturn, and were able to innovate and be candid, they're the ones that are surviving. So things you should never do, I thought I'd talk about. Just don't do these things in a crisis. Like I said, do not wait to make a move, right? You just kind of kicking the can down the road is the wrong decision. You need to make sure that you bring all of your team together, you reach out to your customers, you reach out to your shareholders if you have them, your investors. You have to understand what's going on. So do not ignore the situation. And then the next thing to do or not to do is do not, I've seen this so many times, leaders, they don't want to give bad news. You don't want to make cuts. You definitely don't want to let people go. That's always hard. And so they try to trickle the pain, the death by 1,000 cuts. And so do not just make a lot of small cuts. You have to do things in bigger tranches. And so everyone's not always looking over their shoulder, wondering, oh, when's the next cut going to come? Am I next? You tell everyone what the plan is. If you have to cut, you tell them why. And you tell them these are the metrics that we're going to have to hit so everyone can watch what's happening. And so it really takes that guesswork out of it, and it builds trust with the team. And so this seems like an easy one, but for some reason, people get caught up. And so you should never tell different people different things. You don't tell your board one thing and your team another, and that goes with your significant other, right? I mean, you need to tell everyone the same thing, and it actually makes it a lot easier because you don't have to remember what you told to whom. So definitely have one story and feel free to share it. And there's a saying that, whoa, we're changing the jet engine while flying, or, go off the cliff without skid marks. That's not acceptable. I mean, you can tap the brakes, you can land the plane. You don't have to just, continue to go hard and run your company off the cliff without slowing down. So definitely take the time to do it right, and make sure you have that plan. So things you should always do in general, crisis or not, how do you scale a business? I just thought I'd throw in a couple here. So I'll go through them pretty quickly, but focus on your current customers. Obviously, know your market. You have to know your market you're in, the competition, what's your unique competitive advantage? How do you build a culture of trust, right? And this is having a diverse team with different backgrounds, but that's just not enough. You have to trust each other, because just having a diverse team that doesn't trust each other, you'll go nowhere. And so build those scalable systems and processes. Make sure you have, whether you're going to implement Salesforce and NetSuite and HubSpot, or all the different systems you need, but make sure you have the processes as well. So of course, you know about SMART goals, and you got to take those goals and put them into things that you can measure. So what are your objectives and key results to track those? And what are the key metrics? Every week I meet with my executive leadership team to cover the key metrics, not all the metrics in the business, be a bit overwhelming, but the key ones. And then every other week we meet with the extended leadership team to cover our objectives and key results, understand how we're tracking, what's working, what's not working, or any adjustments that we have to make. On a personnel front, obviously management's not easy. I love being a manager. I love leading leaders. But the best way I have found is to give real-time feedback. You want to make sure that, obviously, you want to publicly praise and privately criticize. But if you're in a meeting or if you're in a situation where someone does something and you want to give coaching, don't give it right there, but just wait until you're in a time alone. Try to do it within 24 hours, because doing it 3 months or 6 months later in the review, you're just not going to get the same impact. They may not even remember. So do it very quickly. Communicate with all your stakeholders. I talked about that. Obviously, you need your mission and your vision and values. Look, your vision is that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal. Your mission is kind of explains how you're going to get there, and your values are so important. They're the rules of the road that everyone lives by. You, your management, and that's how you hire, and that's how you fire. And then you also have to make sure that you relay your purpose. What are you fighting for? And why do people wake up in the morning and come to work? So, most importantly, all right, obviously, when you're enjoying the journey along the way, you have to be a constant student of change, have an open mindset, right? Got to have that grit that Mike Donelon talked about. You want to make sure that you have goals after a goal. It's not just about having one goal. I'm going to grow my company to X dollars, or I'm going to have this exit or this amount of money in my bank. That doesn't matter. You need multiple goals because there's no destination called success. It's not, oh, I'm going to be successful when, right? Success is an aggregation of every day in your journey. Like that's what really makes up success. And your legacy is determined by the lives you change for the better. And like I always say, definitely enjoy the journey. So thank you very much. And most importantly, go Dukes. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking your lunch hour with us. And just briefly, unfortunately, Dean Beesing couldn't be with us today, had to step out of the office this week. My name is Diana Kaiser. I'm part of our development team, so delighted to be here as the host. And Russ, thank you so much for your words of wisdom and sharing some of your experiences. You've had a tremendous career, and also thank you for all of your support at JMU, and you and Casey for the investment in this beautiful building.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. So my first question is really around the fact that you have been CEO of a number of companies. You've stepped in and carried them through a number of crises. So what would you say are your best practices and the way that you lead through these transitions?
I think the most important thing, not only for a CEO, but any new manager, someone with power and that people report to, you really have to look at the other side of it. Look through the eyes of your employees and your partners, your customers, your shareholders. You know, they're nervous, right? They don't know you, most likely. They're looking out for their best interest. They're trying to figure out if you're looking out for their best interest. So I think one of the most important things is to understand who you're working with, and that the words you use, the actions you take, it's like a ripple on a lake, right? You throw a stone in and they just go on forever. And so understanding that you do make big impacts with little moves, and little words make big impacts, and everyone's trying to figure out if they should trust you or not. And so by understanding that, and then going in and listening first and asking questions, I have a lot of best practices I use in different companies, but I don't have just my textbook that I hand out. You know, there's one private equity firm that's very large, and they literally, when they invest, they hand out a book and they say, this is your best practice. And it doesn't make a difference if you're a SaaS company or a cloud company or services company. They give you a book, and that book's old. It's old, and it's for something else. And there's not just one best practice. It's an aggregation of all those learnings. And then once you ask questions, then you can build those plans that I discussed, and make your hypothesis from the issues that you foresee.
Great, thank you. So sort of building off of that, you mentioned you really, or actually Dean Beesing, I think, mentioned in his introduction that you like to create a culture of diversity and fun, and just really a creative environment. What are the objectives and key results that you set as metrics to continue to build that culture? First of all, to create it, and then to build it.
Sure. Yeah, great question. I always say that our people are our most important asset, right? Of course, you need customers to make payroll and pay the bills, but those people are the ones that make that possible. And so, not taking for granted that your most valuable asset in any business are your people. So with that expectation, going in with respect and trust, and diversity, right? Growing a diverse team that brings different perspectives. And then the hard part is actually building the trust. And so when we build those objectives and key results around employees, we look at attrition, right? Making sure people aren't leaving. We look at making sure, like for instance, at Infrascale, we rolled out an entirely new vision, mission, and values. And we talk about it every month in our town hall, our all hands meetings that we get together with. And, just to make sure that that our managers are having one-on-one meetings and skip level one-on-one meetings with their people, and that there's a communication path. So from a people OKR perspective, you can definitely manage it, and you have to understand that you just can't come in and say, this is what our culture is. Culture, it comes from within, it grows. You can only plant the seeds and hope they grow. So as a leader.
Fantastic, thank you. So looking specifically at data protection, that's your latest area of focus. That seems to be a very relevant topic for many companies, most companies, with all of the data breach incidents. What is your overarching advice on that subject for a company?
Yeah, no, sure. Of course, I've been talking about data protection my entire career in the cloud, and but it's so important that everyone just understands that all your personal data, your passwords, your email addresses, your home address, it's out there, right? And people can use that against you to try to have a phishing email attack to your parents or to coworkers, and to understand what you're up against. And you're up against some very smart people that are ruthless. And so I'd say, number one, everyone has to, once you understand that, turn on two-factor authentication. Make sure you use a password keeper. Make sure you have different passwords that you change every 3 months. You don't have to write them down when you use a password keeper, and you don't create them. You let the password keeper create them. But once you've done all of that, then you have to make sure that everything is backed up, because it's a matter of when you're going to lose your data, not if. Whether it's through a fire or flood, or just some technical issue, or if you do get a ransomware attack, you are going to lose your data. So whether it's your phone, which you can back up to the cloud, whether it's your laptop, you can back up to the cloud, or the applications you use on your laptop, they can be SaaS, and you can back up your SaaS, and then your servers. And you can pay for redundancy. Like, I can pay to have 2 cars, but I don't want to have 2 cars. I want 1 car, and I want to have a spare tire. But maybe you have a large spare tire or a small spare tire, or no spare tire if you have a Tesla, right? And so it's just a matter of expense and how much downtime that you can afford. And if you can't afford to all the redundancy and backup, then you're just going to take you a little while if you are struck with ransomware. But you're not going to lose that most important asset of most businesses, second to employees, and that's data. Like, you need all this data.
Very good point. We all know about downtime these days, and how important it is not to have that. So thanks for sharing that. So to the point of your employees and the subject of diversity, how have you as a leader managed diversity throughout the various companies that you've been with, and created that atmosphere of trust and culture of diversity?
Yeah, I mean, I'm over 27 years I've been hiring, and I've always looked to build a diverse culture of top talent. How I do it is, I'm on the board of the Children's Science Center. I'm trying to give back. I think this is not only, you can definitely build trust and have a diverse team in the short term, but you can have a huge difference in the long term, because it's a 20-year problem to fix. We need to make sure that we invest in education, so everyone has the same education. Everyone has nutrition and as in preschool, and they can have the same education and grow up and learn about STEM, because the future is STEM. And so once we look at both short term and long term, we can fix it. We can't always just be looking short term. I'm not only managing that on a day-to-day basis, but I'm trying to invest in programs that understand that with better education to all Americans, we can fix this problem.
Fantastic. So we're getting close on time, but I think we can squeeze in one more question. Looking forward, what is your view? Obviously, the political and economic world is quite diverse in its own way right now, and challenging. What do you foresee as some of the the upcoming challenges as we come out of this
Just
pandemic.
one short little question, right?
One short one.
Yeah, I think
Just wrap it all up.
Yeah, from a U.S. perspective, we do things are they feel a little bit more stable now. Of course, it takes one macro event to disrupt that. From an economy, obviously, feels a bit frothy right now. From homes to cars to anything you try to buy, there's a limited supply. And when you're manufacturing, there's limited chips, there's limited supply. So having a weak supply chain, having a weak, there's only 2 foundries in the entire world that create these chips. That's why Ford and GM are shutting down plants, because they can't create the product. Having a weak supply is almost as bad as having a weak demand. They're going to miss their numbers, and that could have significant consequences for our long-term economic outlook. But I'm pretty confident we're going to continue to grow here, but it is pretty frothy, and valuations are at an all-time high since 2000. People are trading too much on margin, so those things could explode pretty quickly. But I try to stay optimistic.
That is important indeed. Well, I think we need to wrap up. We do have some other questions in the chat, but we can circulate those back privately. Thank you again so much for your time and just all the ways that you support and invest in JMU. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. Take care.
Absolutely, you too. I think we have one wrap-up slide to put on, and just want to mention that this series is wrapping up. Russ was our anchor, and thanks to all of our speakers. That our next series will be moderated by Dr. Mert Tokman, and it's challenges amid COVID-19 as they relate to the supply chain, and that will run from May 4th through June 1st. So we hope that you will register and tune in for that, same time, same channel. And also please consider investing with the college. We really are focused on scholarships, and there's a tremendous need for that to help our students with their college fees. So you can use the QR code to make a gift today. Thank you so much.